I still remember the day it all began. It wasn't dramatic, no thunder, no lightning, just a quiet evening and the soft buzz of my phone. I was scrolling through something pointless on social media when her message popped up. Simple, friendly, almost too perfect. She wrote, "Hey, I saw your post about that old movie. You really like old classics?" That's how it started. One sentence, one question, and from that moment, everything changed. We both had lives before that, separate routines, jobs, friends. She was living in another city, working as a designer for some advertising agency. I was here, running my own small business, mostly alone, with the usual circle of people who came and went. We weren't strangers, we had mutual friends, but we'd only met once or twice at parties. Nothing serious, nothing memorable, until that night. I replied, almost without thinking. Something like, "Yeah, they don't make 'em like they used to. What's your favorite?" And she answered right away. Like she was waiting. Or maybe just excited. Either way, the conversation didn't stop after one message. It kept going, and going. We talked about music, movies, books. We laughed at dumb memes. Shared playlists. Complained about life. It felt easy, like we had known each other for years. The kind of connection you hear people talk about but rarely experience yourself. But looking back now, there were signs, tiny cracks in the surface. Things I ignored because I wanted to believe in what was happening. Like how quickly she responded. How every time I logged in, she was online. How she seemed to know exactly what to say to keep me engaged. It was flattering, sure, but also strange. At the time, I told myself it was just chemistry, fate, maybe even love, but now I'm not so sure. Because the more I think about it, the more I realize, she chose that night to reach out. Not me. She picked the moment, and I walked straight into it. We started talking every day after that. Then every hour. Then all night long. Conversations turned into voice notes. Voice notes turned into late-night calls. And then, finally, video chats. We were building something, slowly, carefully, like two architects drawing blueprints for a house we both imagined living in. But houses can burn down. And sometimes, the fire starts in the foundation. One thing I've learned since then is that people don't always show their true selves at the beginning. They wear masks, smiles, perfectly chosen words, and by the time you see behind the mask, it's already too late. She told me later, much later, that she had been curious about me for a long time. That she thought I was different. Quiet, she said, but intense. That intrigued her. She liked mystery. She liked puzzles. And I, apparently, was one she couldn't resist solving. But what if she wasn't trying to connect? What if she was just playing? It's hard to say now. Back then, I believed every word. Every laugh. Every pause. Every breath between sentences. I held onto it like it was proof that someone finally understood me. And maybe she did. Maybe that's what makes it worse. Because the truth is, she did understand me, better than anyone else, and she still chose to do what she did. So yes, it all started with one message. A simple question, a gateway to something neither of us could control. But gateways open both ways. And once you walk through, there's no turning back. We didn't meet in person for weeks after that first message. But it felt like we were already together, like our souls had somehow found each other before our bodies could catch up. She told me once, during one of those long late-night calls, that she believed in signs. That life gave you little nudges when something important was about to happen. And she said that night, the night she sent me that message, was her sign. I asked her what she meant. She said, sometimes, you just feel it. Like the world is holding its breath. Like everything is waiting for you to make a choice. And I believed her. I believed every word she said. Because I wanted to. Because I needed to. But now, I wonder if she really felt that way. Or if she was just telling me what I wanted to hear. There's a difference between truth and comfort. And sometimes, people give you comfort because they want something from you. It took us 3 weeks to finally meet. She came to my city under the pretense of work, some design conference she had to attend. I knew it was an excuse. And she knew I knew. When I saw her again, it wasn't like I remembered. Not exactly. Time changes people. Distance does too. But there was something electric in the air when we stood face to face. A kind of energy that made everything else fade into the background. We met at a small cafe near the river. She wore a red coat and smelled like vanilla and rain. We talked for hours. No pressure, no expectations, just two people trying to understand each other. That day, I thought I had found something rare. Something real. What I didn't know was that even then, things weren't as simple as they seemed. Because while we were building this beautiful connection, there were parts of her life she never shared with me. People she talked to behind my back. Messages she kept hidden. Secrets tucked away like old letters in a locked drawer. I found out later, much later, that she was still seeing someone else when we met. Not seriously, she said. Just casual, she called it. But even casual can leave scars. And I had no idea. I was blind, not because I couldn't see, but because I didn't want to. She became my world, fast, intensely, like a storm that hits without warning. And I let it happen because I had been alone for so long. Because I wanted to believe that someone could love me the way she pretended to. Looking back, I think that's when it all started falling apart. Not when the lies came out. Not when the truth hit me like a wall. But right there, in that moment when I chose to ignore the quiet voice inside me that said, "Be careful. This might not be real." But I didn't listen, and maybe that was my first mistake. We started spending more and more time together. At first, it was just weekends. She would come to my city every few weeks, always with a new excuse, a meeting, a friend's birthday, a photography workshop. I never questioned her. Why would I? She was everything I had ever wanted in a person. Smart, funny, mysterious in the way that made you want to know more. And she listened, really listened, in a way most people never do. She knew how to make me feel like I mattered. Like my thoughts, my fears, my dreams were important. And in return, I gave her everything. My trust, my heart, my silence when things didn't add up. Because there were moments when something felt off. Small things, at first. A message that disappeared too quickly. A call she couldn't answer. A name she mentioned once and then never again. But I told myself I was imagining things. Isn't that what people do when they're in love? They ignore the red flags because they don't want to believe them. They tell themselves stories where everything works out in the end. And I was writing mine. We built this little world of ours, full of inside jokes, shared playlists, late-night talks about life, death, love, and everything in between. We talked about our future like it was already written. We even picked out names for the dog we never got. We imagined the house we never bought. It was beautiful, too beautiful. Looking back now, I realize that sometimes, the most dangerous lies are the ones we tell ourselves. Because I convinced myself she was different. That she loved me the way I loved her. That she would never hurt me. And all the while, the cracks were getting deeper. There was one night, early on, when I almost saw it. We were lying in bed after a long day. The city was quiet outside, and the only sound was the soft hum of the street lights through the window. She was half asleep, curled into my side, and I thought she was dreaming when she whispered something I wasn't sure I heard correctly. I asked her what she said. She blinked slowly and smiled. "Nothing, baby, just thinking," but I remembered the words. "I hope he doesn't find out." I should have asked who he was. Instead, I kissed her forehead and pretended I hadn't heard anything. That was another mistake, one of many, and I kept making them, one after another, because I didn't want to lose her, because I believed in the version of her that existed in my head, not the one who was hiding parts of herself behind closed doors. So yes, it all started with one message. A simple question, a spark, and from that spark, everything burned. They say marriage is a journey, that it's full of ups and downs, laughter and tears, moments that bring you closer, and others that quietly pull you apart. But what they don't tell you is how easy it is to forget why you started the journey in the first place. We got married 2 years after we met. It felt like the natural next step. We had everything people dream of: a beautiful ceremony, a perfect venue, hundreds of guests, and photos that looked like they came straight out of a fairy tale. Everyone said we were meant to be together. And for a while, I believed them. At first, everything was golden. The kind of happiness that feels almost too bright to last. We traveled, we laughed, we built a home together, not just a house, but a life. We decorated it with little pieces of us: paintings she picked out, books from my shelves, candles that smelled like vanilla and old memories. But slowly, things began to change. It wasn't one big fight or a dramatic moment. No screaming matches, no slammed doors, just silence. The kind that grows between two people until it becomes louder than any argument ever could. We stopped talking late into the night. Stopped sharing playlists. Stopped finishing each other's sentences. Instead, we lived side by side, not together, but not apart either. We became experts at pretending. In front of friends, we smiled. We held hands. We posted pictures on social media with captions like "Forever starts today" or "Still my favorite person." But behind closed doors, there was distance, a quiet kind of loneliness that creeps up on you when you realize the person sleeping beside you feels like a stranger. I used to wonder when it happened, when the warmth turned cold. When her laughter stopped being the sound I looked forward to most. Maybe it was when she started working late. Or when she began traveling more often for business. Or maybe it was when she stopped looking me in the eyes. She would sit across from me at dinner, scrolling through her phone, barely saying a word. I'd ask how her day was, and she'd shrug like the answer didn't matter. Sometimes she wouldn't even hear me. I told myself it was stress. That everyone goes through rough patches. That love doesn't always feel like it does in the beginning. So I stayed quiet. I gave her space. I let the silence grow. Because I was afraid of what might happen if I asked the questions I already knew the answers to. There were signs, small ones, scattered like breadcrumbs leading somewhere I didn't want to go. Like the perfume I didn't recognize on her scarf. The way she locked her phone screen whenever I walked into the room. The messages that made her smile in a way she hadn't smiled at me in months. And once, just once, I saw a name pop up on her phone. A message came through, and before she could lock the screen, I read it. It was just a name. 2 letters. But something about it felt wrong. I never asked her about it. Why? Because I didn't want to know. That's the thing about denial. It's easier than truth. Easier to live with lies when you're the one choosing not to see them. I kept telling myself that if I loved her enough, it would fix whatever was breaking between us. That if I waited long enough, she'd come back to me. But people don't always return, even when you hold on to them with both hands. Sometimes, they leave without ever really walking away. And sometimes, they find comfort somewhere else, not because they hate you, but because they stopped loving you a long time ago. Looking back now, I think she was searching for something long before she ever found it. Not just another person, not just physical closeness. Something real, something that made her feel alive again. And I couldn't give it to her. Because somewhere along the way, I lost myself too. We stopped being a team. We stopped fighting for each other. And in that silence, she found someone who listened. Someone who noticed when she was sad. Someone who gave her the attention I forgot how to give. I don't know when it started. Maybe it was during one of those late work trips. Maybe it was in the middle of the night, when she thought I was asleep and slipped out of bed to send a message. Maybe it was in a cafe where he smiled at her like I used to. All I know is that when I finally realized what was happening, it was already over. But even then, I didn't say anything. I watched her walk away piece by piece, and I did nothing. Because I was still holding on to the memory of the woman who sent me that first message. The one who said, "Hey, I saw your post about that old movie." You really like old classics? And I answered yes. Yes, I liked old classics. And I liked her, even when she stopped liking me. There was one night, maybe 6 months before everything fell apart, when I almost asked her. We were sitting on the couch, the television playing something neither of us was really watching. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional sound of a car passing outside. She was scrolling through her phone again, thumbs moving fast like she was trying to escape from something. I watched her face as she read whatever message had just come in. Her lips twitched into the smallest smile. Just a flicker, barely noticeable, but I noticed, and for the first time, I felt it, not jealousy, but loss. Like something inside me knew that part of her wasn't mine anymore. I turned to her and said, "You've been getting a lot of messages lately." It was a question disguised as a statement. A way to open the door without knocking too loudly. She didn't look up. "Just work stuff," she replied, still scrolling. I nodded. "Work stuff? Or someone else?" The moment stretched between us like a tight wire. She finally looked at me then, eyes wide with surprise. Not anger, not guilt, surprise. She smiled, the kind of smile people use when they want to make you feel silly for thinking what you're thinking. "What are you talking about? You know I would never do that." Her voice was calm, reassuring, like she was talking to a child who had seen monsters under the bed. And I believed her, or rather, I wanted to believe her. So I laughed, nervously at first, then louder, like we were sharing a joke only we understood. "Yeah, sorry, I guess I'm just being paranoid." She leaned over and kissed my cheek. "Don't worry so much, baby. You're all I need." And just like that, the moment passed. But something inside me broke that night. Quietly, without sound, because even though she denied it, I saw the hesitation in her eyes. The way her fingers tightened around her phone for just a second before she relaxed again. That's the thing about truth, sometimes, you don't need proof to know it exists. Sometimes, your heart tells you long before your eyes can see it. And mine told me that something was wrong. But instead of facing it, I buried it. I went back to pretending. Back to silence. Back to letting her pull away while I stood still, hoping she'd turn around and come back. But she didn't. Instead, she kept going. And I kept watching. Until one day, I couldn't pretend anymore. We used to go on long drives. Just the two of us, windows down, music playing softly in the background. We'd talk about everything, dreams, fears, places we wanted to see before we got too old. But somewhere along the way, those drives stopped happening. Instead, she started going out alone. Not every night, not even often enough for me to call it a pattern, but enough that I noticed. She would say she was meeting friends, or that she needed time to clear her head. Sometimes she said she just wanted to be alone. And I let her go. Because what else could I do? Follow her? Confront her with nothing but suspicion and silence? No, I told myself she needed space. That everyone has moments when they want to disappear for a while. So I stayed home, watched TV, read books, waited, and waited. Sometimes she came back late. Other times, not until the next morning. Once, she didn't come back at all. I remember that night like it was yesterday. It was raining hard, the kind of rain that hits the windows like someone is trying to get in. I sat on the couch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the clock tick past midnight. I didn't text her, didn't call. I told myself she had a reason. Maybe her car broke down. Maybe she lost track of time. Maybe she just didn't feel like coming home. When she finally walked through the door the next morning, she looked tired. Her hair was damp from the rain, and her eyes were red, like she hadn't slept. I asked where she had been. She sighed, like the question was too heavy for so early in the morning. "I stayed at Lena's place," she said. "We talked all night." Lena was one of her oldest friends. A name I knew, a name I trusted. So I nodded, said okay, let it go. But something inside me whispered, that wasn't Lena's voice on the phone last week. That wasn't Lena's name on her screen. Still, I chose to believe her. Because if I didn't, then what did that mean? That she lied? That she had been lying for months? That our marriage was already over, and I just hadn't realized it yet? I couldn't face that. Not then, not yet. So I kept pretending, even when my heart knew the truth. Even when I started finding small things, pieces of paper with scribbled numbers she never explained. Receipts from hotels she never mentioned. Texts that disappeared the moment she saw me walking into the room. I told myself I was imagining things. Until one day, I wasn't. There came a moment, quiet, unremarkable, when I realized she no longer missed me when I was gone. If I traveled for work, she barely replied to my messages. If I called, she answered only once or twice before letting them go to voicemail. And when I came home, there was no rush to hug me. No excitement, no warmth, just stillness, like I had become furniture in her life. Something familiar, but not necessary. That's when I understood. She had already moved on. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, piece by piece, like water carving stone. And I had watched it happen, without saying a word, because I was afraid of losing her, afraid of being alone, afraid of facing the fact that maybe I wasn't enough for her anymore. So yes, our marriage was full of silence, full of unsaid words, full of questions neither of us dared to ask. And behind that silence, she found someone who made her feel alive again. Someone who listened, someone who smiled at her the way I used to, someone who gave her what I forgot how to give. And I was left standing in the shadows of a love that no longer belonged to me. There was one last moment, just before the end, when I almost told her everything. We were in the kitchen. It was early evening, and the sun was setting behind the trees outside our window, casting long shadows across the floor. She was making coffee, her back to me, moving with that quiet grace she always had. I stood there, watching her, trying to understand how we got here, how we went from late-night talks and shared playlists to silence and secrets. I wanted to ask her so many things. Did you ever love me? Was any of it real? When did you stop wanting this life with me? But instead, I said nothing, because I already knew the answer. And I think she knew I knew. She turned around, holding two mugs, handed me one without a word. Steam rose between us like a thin veil, soft, temporary, fragile. I took a sip. It tasted like the coffee she always made. The same brand, same way she used to make it when we were still happy. But something was different now. Not the taste, us. I finally looked at her and asked, "Do you still love me?" My voice was calm, like I was asking about the weather. She froze for just a second. Barely noticeable, but I saw it. Then she smiled, not with her eyes, just with her lips. "Of course I do," she said. "You're my husband." That word, husband, felt heavier than it ever had before. Like a title I no longer deserved. Or maybe never truly earned. I didn't press her, didn't push for more, because what would be the point? Even if she lied again, I would have believed her. Because I wasn't ready to lose her yet. But deep down, I already had. She just hadn't told me. Not out loud, not in words. But sometimes, silence speaks louder than anything else. And hers was deafening. It started with a name. Not hers, not mine, his. I found it in the most ordinary place, on a receipt tucked into her bag. A hotel receipt, dated 3 months earlier. Room 412. Payment made in cash. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she had stayed there for work. Maybe someone else used her name by mistake. But then I saw his name again. This time, on her phone. I wasn't snooping, at least, not intentionally. We were lying in bed one night when she got a message and jumped up to reply immediately. Her phone screen lit up briefly in the dark, and I caught a glimpse of the notification. "Hey," it read, "miss you already." And under that, his name. I didn't say anything, just watched her type back something fast, something eager. Then she turned off the screen and lay back down beside me like nothing had happened. I pretended to be asleep. She didn't know I was awake. Didn't know I had seen it. Didn't know I was breaking inside. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about everything, every moment I ignored, every question I never asked, every lie I let pass because I was too afraid to face the truth. So the next morning, I started looking. Not aggressively, not like an investigator, just quietly, like someone trying not to wake a sleeping monster. I began with her social media. Messages deleted after being read. Conversations hidden behind private accounts. Photos tagged in places she said she hadn't been. Then came the calls. Short, whispered, always when she thought I wasn't listening. I would sit in another room while she spoke in hushed tones, her voice soft and careful, like she was talking to someone she didn't want me to hear. And once, just once, I heard her laugh in a way I hadn't heard in years. Not at something I said. Not at a memory we shared. But at something he said. That was the moment I realized I wasn't just losing her. I had already lost her. And I was just living in the echo of what we used to be. Still, I didn't confront her. Because I knew what would happen. She'd deny it. Say I was paranoid. Tell me I was imagining things. Make me feel like the bad guy for caring enough to notice. So instead, I did something else. I started saving everything. Screenshots, receipts, deleted messages I managed to recover. Even the timestamps of late-night calls she thought I never noticed. I built a file, quietly, carefully, not because I wanted revenge yet. Just because I needed proof. Proof that I hadn't imagined all of it. Proof that I wasn't going crazy. Proof that the woman I loved had become someone I no longer recognized. And somewhere deep inside me, I knew. One day, I would use it. Not to hurt her, but to make sure she could never hurt me again. It wasn't one thing, not a single message, not one photo, not even one night she didn't come home. It was everything, all at once, like a dam breaking after years of pressure. I had been collecting pieces of the truth for months, quietly, carefully. Screenshots hidden in folders on my laptop. Receipts folded and tucked away like evidence from a crime I didn't want to believe happened. And then came the final piece. A photo, just a photo, sent in a group chat I wasn't even part of. One of her friends posted it during a weekend trip, nothing dramatic. Just a casual picture of him sitting outside a small cafe, sipping coffee, laughing like they were just friends catching up. But when I saw it, my blood turned cold. Because she wasn't alone. In the background, barely visible but unmistakable, was him. His arm around her waist. Her head resting on his shoulder. They looked comfortable, like they had done this before. Like they belonged together. I stared at that image for what felt like hours. Trying to convince myself there was an explanation. Maybe he was just a friend. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I was seeing something that wasn't really there. But deep down, I knew. This wasn't innocent. This wasn't just two people hanging out with mutual friends. This was them, together, in public, without shame, without hiding, and worst of all, without me knowing. I sat there, frozen, the phone trembling slightly in my hand. I didn't cry, not right away. Instead, I went numb. That strange, empty silence inside you when something fundamental about your life shifts forever. Like gravity suddenly reversed, like the ground under your feet became air. And then the anger came. Quiet at first, a slow burn behind my ribs. Then louder, stronger, until I couldn't sit still anymore. I got up, walked into the bedroom, and opened her drawer. The one she always kept locked. I didn't have a key. But I didn't need one. She thought I didn't notice things. Thought I was too distracted, too trusting, too blind. But I had noticed more than she ever realized. I found the lock-picking tool in the kitchen, something I bought once for fun, pretending it was just a hobby. I used it now without hesitation. The drawer opened with a soft click. Inside were things I expected, old journals, makeup, a necklace I gave her on our anniversary. And beneath them, her second phone, black, sleek, unmarked. I picked it up, It was locked, but I tried her birthday. Then mine, then the name of her dog from childhood. Nothing worked, until I typed in his name. And the screen unlocked. Everything I needed was right there. Messages, voice notes, photos, videos, too many to count. They started months ago, long before that hotel receipt, before the late night calls, before the silences that grew too loud to ignore. They had met through a mutual friend. At first, it was just conversation. Friendly, casual, but soon, it became more. "I miss you," she wrote to him one night. "Why can't we just be together already?" Another time, she sent a voice note, whispering, "He's asleep. I wish you were here instead." There were photos from hotels, from restaurants, from places she told me she was working late or meeting friends. Every lie, every excuse, every moment she disappeared, it was all there. Proof, more than enough proof, and yet, none of it mattered. Because I didn't want to prove anything anymore. I wanted revenge, but not the kind that screams or breaks things. No, I wanted something colder, something calculated, something that would make her feel exactly what I felt in that moment. Alone, betrayed, destroyed. I closed the drawer slowly, put everything back the way it was, went back to the living room, sat down, and waited for her to come home, for the moment when I would finally show her that I knew everything, and that I was no longer the man who would let her walk away unchallenged. She came home just after 8. I heard the key in the lock, the soft creak of the door opening, her footsteps, light, tired, familiar. She walked into the living room with that same look she always had lately. Distant, preoccupied, like her mind was somewhere else entirely. When she saw me sitting there, waiting, she paused for just a second. Not long enough to be noticeable. But I noticed. Of course I did. I didn't say anything at first. Just watched as she took off her coat and draped it over the chair. Watched as she ran a hand through her hair like she was trying to shake something off. Then she smiled. That smile, the one she used when she wanted to make you feel comfortable. Safe, like everything was okay. "Hey," she said softly. "You're up late." I nodded slowly. "I've been waiting for you." She blinked, surprised. "For what?" I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Without a word, I opened the message thread. Scrolled down until I found the photo. The one from the cafe. I turned the screen toward her. Her face changed instantly. It wasn't shock. Not really. More like recognition. Like she knew this moment would come eventually. She didn't ask where I got it. Didn't try to deny it. Instead, she sat down across from me. Exhaled. And finally said, "Okay." Just one word. But it carried everything. Admission. Acceptance. Maybe even regret. I waited for her to explain. To beg. To cry. But she didn't. She looked at me, really looked at me, and said, "You don't understand what it's like to feel so alone in a marriage." I laughed then, quietly, bitterly. "You were never alone," I said. "You just stopped seeing me." She shook her head. "No, I mean, emotionally. You stopped talking to me. Stopped touching me. Stopped caring." I leaned forward. "And that gives you the right to do this? To lie? To pretend everything was fine while you built a life with someone else behind my back?" She didn't answer, because there was no answer. Only silence. Heavy. Final. I stood up, walked past her, stopped at the doorway. Then I turned around and said, "You should know. I have more than just that photo." Her eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" I smiled, not a happy one. A cold one. "I know about the messages. The calls. The hotel room. The voice notes you sent him when you thought I was asleep." Her lips parted slightly. "You went through my things?" I shrugged. I didn't have to dig very deep. She looked away, and in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't afraid. She was relieved, like this was the end of a secret she had been carrying for too long. And maybe, just maybe, she never wanted to hide it anymore. She didn't move for a long time. Just sat there, staring at the floor like it might give her an answer she couldn't find in herself. Then, slowly, she looked up at me. Her voice was quiet when she finally spoke. "I don't expect you to understand," she said. "But I didn't plan for this to happen." I almost laughed again. Didn't plan for it? Didn't plan for the messages? For the nights away from home? For the way she smiled at him like she hadn't smiled at me in years? No, of course not. It just happened. That's what people say when they want to excuse their choices. Like love is some kind of accident. Like betrayal is something that sneaks up on you. But it doesn't. Not really. You make decisions. Small ones. One after another. Until one day, you wake up and realize you've built a life that no longer belongs to the person who thought they were living it with you. So I asked her, not angrily, but honestly, when did you decide it was okay? She blinked. What do you mean? I took a step closer. When did you decide it was okay to lie to me? To kiss someone else while wearing my ring? To tell me you loved me while whispering sweet things to him in secret? Her lips parted slightly, and then, for the first time, she looked afraid. Not of me, of the truth, because she didn't have an answer. There wasn't one, so she whispered, "I don't know." I nodded slowly. "That's the saddest part," I said. "You don't even know when you stopped caring." She looked down again. Silence filled the room, heavier than before. Then she said, "I wanted to tell you. So many times." I raised an eyebrow. "But you didn't." She shook her head. "No, I didn't." And somehow, that hurt more than anything else. More than the lies. More than the photos. More than the fact that she had chosen someone else. It wasn't that she fell out of love with me. It was that she decided not to fight for us. Even when she knew how broken we were becoming. Even when she saw me trying to hold on to something real. She just let go, quietly, without warning, without giving me a chance to stop her. I turned away from her again, walked into the bedroom, closed the door behind me, sat on the edge of the bed, stared at the wall, tried to breathe, but everything felt different now, like I had been living in a house that suddenly caught fire. And I was standing inside it, watching everything burn. I reached for my phone, opened the folder where I kept all the screenshots, all the proof. I could have sent them to everyone, posted them online, destroyed her reputation with one click. But I didn't want that. Not yet. Instead, I typed a message. One simple line. To her. Tell me the truth. All of it. Now. I hit send. Waited. 5 seconds passed. 10. 15. Then came the vibration. She replied. Only 4 words. 4 words that would change everything. "I owe you that." That was it. No excuses. No explanations. Just those 4 words. And in that moment, I realized. This wasn't over. Not by far. Because I wasn't done yet. And neither was she. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't cry or beg or threaten. Instead, I smiled. Softly, calmly, like I understood, like I forgave her. That's when my plan began. Because the best revenge isn't loud. It's quiet. It's calculated. It's the kind of pain that sneaks up on you when you think the storm has already passed. She thought she had won. That night, after I read her message, "I owe you that," she looked at me like I was about to break. And maybe I did, but not in the way she expected. I let her talk. For hours. She told me everything, how it started, how long it had been going on, how many times she almost told me and couldn't find the words. I listened, not because I wanted to hear her excuses, but because I needed to know how deep the betrayal went. How many lies she had built around us. How many people knew before I did. And most importantly, who else had seen her fall out of love with me. By morning, I had all the names. His name, her closest friend who helped cover things up, the bartender at the cafe where they used to meet, even her sister, who once sent her a message asking, "Are you really going to keep doing this?" I memorized every detail, every place, every time, every word, and then I started preparing. Not for war, for justice. Discreet, public, unforgiving. I didn't want to destroy her life. I wanted to make sure no one believed her version of the truth. Because if she could lie to me so easily, If she could smile while betraying someone who loved her more than anyone ever had, then she didn't deserve to be trusted by anyone else either. So I played the long game. I stayed calm. I stayed close. I acted like I was trying to save our marriage. I held her hand, kissed her forehead, told her I needed time but that I still loved her. And she believed me, because I made her believe me. I became the perfect victim. Hurt, broken, still clinging to something real. Meanwhile, I gathered everything. Every message, every receipt, every photo. I created folders, organized them by date, saved voice notes from late-night calls between her and him, whispered conversations filled with affection she never gave me anymore. I even recorded one of their messages without her knowing, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I wanted him to understand what he had taken, what he had helped destroy. And then came the invitations. Not to dinner, not to drinks, to the truth. I reached out to mutual friends. One by one, quietly, carefully, told them I needed to talk. That something had happened, that I didn't want to spread rumors, but I needed people to know the whole story. Some of them were shocked. Some of them avoided me. A few said they suspected something but never wanted to say anything. One of her closest friends, the same one who posted that photo in the cafe, cried when I showed her the evidence. She said, "I didn't know it was this bad." And I said, "That's exactly why I'm doing this." Then I contacted him, not with threats, not with rage, with facts. I sent him a message, simple and cold. "You don't know me, but I know everything about you. And about her." He replied instantly, "What are you talking about?" I sent him screenshots, voice notes, photos, everything. He didn't write back for a long time. When he finally did, he asked just one question. "Why are you showing me this?" I answered with 2 words. "Because she lied to you too." And that was the final blow. Because now, no one could pretend they didn't know the truth. Now, no one could look at her the same way again. And the best part? She never saw it coming. Because while I was exposing her secrets to the world, I was still sleeping beside her. Still kissing her goodnight. Still holding her when she pretended to cry over how hard this was for both of us. I let her believe I was healing. Let her believe I was giving her another chance. Let her believe she had gotten away with it. Until the day she realized. She hadn't, not even close. It started with a message. Not from me, from someone else. A mutual friend, someone we both knew for years. Someone who used to joke about how perfect our marriage was. She sent it in a group chat we were both part of. At first, I didn't expect her to reply. But then she did. I just wanted to say, "I'm sorry for everything." That was all. Just 6 words. But they landed like a punch to the gut. Because everyone saw them. Everyone understood what they meant. And most importantly, she said them publicly. Before I even had a chance to show everyone the truth, one of her oldest friends admitted that something had been wrong. Something she knew about. Something she never told me. I didn't respond, didn't thank her, didn't acknowledge her apology. Instead, I waited for the right moment. And when it came, I struck. I posted nothing on social media. No screaming rants. No crying selfies. No dramatic songs with lyrics about betrayal. No, I did something worse. I shared her words, screenshots of her messages to him, voice notes where she whispered sweet things into his ear while lying beside me, photos from hotel rooms where she should have been working late. All of it, quietly, carefully, without comment, just the facts. And I sent them not to strangers. To people who loved her. Her mother, her sister, their closest family friends, even his parents. I made sure no one could pretend this hadn't happened. And then, I waited again. For the silence to turn into whispers. For the whispers to become conversations. For the conversations to become judgment. And it worked. Within days, people started distancing themselves. Friends stopped inviting us to dinners. Colleagues avoided her at work. Even her own sister barely spoke to her anymore. She noticed, of course. One night, she sat across from me at the kitchen table and asked, "Did you do something?" I looked up slowly. "Do something about what?" She swallowed hard. "People are acting strange. Like they know." I smiled, the same soft smile I always gave her before I kissed her goodnight. "Maybe they finally opened their eyes," I said. She stared at me, then whispered, "You wouldn't." I leaned forward. I already did, and in that moment, I saw it. Not anger, not fear, shock, like she had spent so long believing I was weak that she forgot I was watching. Listening, remembering. I wasn't just hurt, I was awake, and now, so was everyone else. She didn't lash out, not at first. Instead, she did what she always did, she tried to regain control. She called her friends, one by one, tried to explain, said I was misunderstanding things, that I had taken everything out of context, that I was manipulating people with edited messages and fake screenshots. But it didn't work, because the truth doesn't need defending when it's real. And my evidence? It was undeniable. I had timestamps, voice notes with background sounds that matched specific places, hotel receipts with check-in records, even a security camera photo from a restaurant where they had dinner together. Everything matched, every detail. So when she told people I was lying, they didn't believe her. For the first time in her life, people stopped listening when she spoke. And that scared her more than anything else. One night, after another failed attempt to clear her name, she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at me like I was a stranger. Then she whispered, "Why are you doing this?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to my desk, opened the drawer, pulled out a small notebook. I flipped through the pages slowly, each one filled with dates, names, conversations I had memorized, things she said without realizing I was paying attention. I handed it to her. She took it hesitantly, flipped through it once, then again. Her eyes widened. "You wrote all of this down?" I nodded. "Every lie, every excuse, every time you thought I wasn't watching." She looked up at me, confused. "But why?" I smiled again, not with kindness, but with finality. "Because I loved you enough to notice. And you lied to me enough for me to never forget." That was the moment she realized I hadn't just been hurt. I had been preparing, planning, waiting, and now, I had won. Not because I wanted revenge for its own sake, but because I needed the world to see her the way I finally did. Not the woman who sent me that first message. Not the wife who used to kiss me like I was the only person in the world. Not the lover who whispered promises into the dark. No, the woman who chose betrayal. Who built a new life on top of the ruins of ours. Who lied so effortlessly that even I almost believed her. And now everyone knew, and there was nothing she could do to take it back. She tried to fight back. Not with words, not with anger, but with silence. For days, she barely spoke to me. Didn't ask how my day was. Didn't kiss me goodbye in the morning. Didn't even look at me when we passed each other in the hallway. I let her do it. Let her pretend she was in control again. Because I knew the truth. She wasn't silent out of strength. She was silent because she had nothing left to say. Then came the messages. Not to me, to our friends, to her family, to people who still loved her, or at least, used to. She sent long texts, voice notes filled with tears. Even emails to mutual acquaintances begging them to understand. "He's manipulating you. He only shows parts of the story. You don't know what he's capable of." She tried to rewrite the narrative. Painted herself as the victim. Said I was punishing her too harshly. That I had crossed a line. That I was making everyone believe the worst version of her. And for a moment, some people listened. Some hesitated. A few even reached out to me, asking if I was sure. That's when I realized something. This wasn't over yet, because while I had exposed the truth, she was still trying to twist it. So I did the only thing that could stop her. I showed them everything, every message, every photo, every voice note, not just the ones from her and him, but also the ones between her and her closest friend. The ones where she laughed about how easy it was to keep me blind. The ones where she said, "He doesn't suspect anything. He's too busy loving me to notice I stopped loving him." I sent it all. No editing, no manipulation, just raw, unfiltered proof. And this time, there was no coming back. Her sister stopped talking to her. Her best friend blocked her number. Even her mother sent one final message before cutting contact. "I raised you better than this." And finally, she understood. One night, after weeks of silence and failed attempts to rebuild her image, she walked into the living room and stood in front of me. No makeup, no mask, no lies, just her. And for the first time, I saw real pain in her eyes. Not for me, for herself. She whispered, "You really destroyed me, didn't you?" I looked up slowly, didn't smile, didn't nod, just said, "Number. You did that yourself." She swallowed hard. "But why did you have to make everyone see it too?" I stood up, walked closer, looked her straight in the eyes. "Because you made me live it alone. So I made sure no one would ever forget what you did." She closed her eyes for a second, then nodded, quietly, finally, and then, without another word, she turned around and walked away, leaving behind everything we once built, including me. She didn't leave right away. Not physically. We still lived in the same house. Still shared the same space. Still passed each other in the hallway like ghosts trapped in a place that no longer felt like home. But something had changed. There was no more pretending. No more silence filled with hidden meaning. No more attempts to rebuild what she had already burned down. She knew I had won. And worse, she knew everyone else knew too. So, for days, we just existed, side by side, not together, not apart either, just waiting for her to decide when it would finally end. Then came the message, the last one she ever sent me. It arrived late at night. One simple text, no explanation, no plea, no apology, just 4 words, "I'm sorry it ended this way." That was it. Not "I'm sorry I lied." Not "I regret what I did." Not even "please forgive me." Just an apology for how it ended. As if the ending was the problem, not the betrayal itself. I stared at the screen for a long time. Didn't reply, didn't delete the message, just left it there, because that was the final proof of who she really was. Even now, after everything, she couldn't bring herself to admit what she had done. Even now, she still tried to frame it like it was fate. Like it was circumstance. Like it was something beyond her control. But it wasn't. It was a choice. And now, so was mine. I walked into the bedroom where she was sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at her phone. I stood in front of her and said, "You don't get to say that." She looked up, surprised. "What?" I sat beside her, softly, calmly. "You don't get to apologize for how it ended. Not when you chose to make it end like this." She opened her mouth to speak. But nothing came out, so I continued. "If you wanted forgiveness, you should have thought about that before you kissed him in that cafe. Before you whispered sweet things into his ear while lying beside me. Before you made me feel like the fool who didn't know he was being played." Her lips trembled slightly. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. I shook my head. "You didn't mean to get caught." Pause. "And that's the difference." She looked down. Silence filled the room again. Heavier than before. Finally, she asked, "What happens now?" I looked at her, at the woman who once felt like my whole world, who now felt like a stranger wearing a familiar face. And I said, "Now, you leave." She blinked slowly, didn't argue, didn't beg, just nodded, quietly, resignedly, and the next morning, she was gone. Left behind only a few things. Clothes, toiletries, a note on the kitchen counter. It read, "I hope someday you can forget all this and find someone who truly deserves you." I read it once, then folded it carefully, put it in the drawer where I kept everything else. All the messages, all the photos, all the pieces of a life that used to feel real. And then I closed the drawer, closed the door, closed that chapter of my life forever. Because some stories don't have happy endings. Some stories end with silence, with pain, with a single message that says more than 1,000 apologies ever could. And mine? Mine ended with 4 words. I'm sorry it ended this way. But I wasn't, because sometimes, the truth needs to be seen. Even if it hurts, even if it destroys, because only then can you finally let go. I still have it, that message, sitting in my inbox like a ghost that refuses to leave. I'm sorry, I didn't want this. 14 words, 1 sentence, and behind them, an entire universe of meaning, or maybe none at all. It came days after she left. Not from her phone, from his. He sent it without explanation. Just those words, as if they could undo everything. I stared at the screen for a long time before I replied. Didn't know what to say. Didn't know if he was asking me to forgive her, or just trying to clear his own conscience. So I typed back one simple question. Did she ask you to send this? No response. Of course not, because he knew what I knew. That even now, even after everything, she couldn't bring herself to apologize the right way. Not with honesty, not with accountability, just with soft words and quiet regret for how things turned out. Not for what she did, but for how it ended. And that's when I realized something. Even in her final message, she was still playing a game. Still trying to shape the narrative. Still trying to be the victim of a story where she was the villain. So I sat down, pulled up every message she had ever sent me, every voice note, every word, and I read them all again. Not because I wanted her back, not because I missed her, but because I needed to understand. What was real? What was fake? Was there ever a moment where she truly loved me? Or was it always just a performance? I started with the beginning. Back to that first message she ever sent me. Hey, I saw your post about that old movie. You really like old classics? At the time, it felt like fate. Now, it felt like strategy. Like she chose that night to reach out. Like she picked the moment. Like she saw something in me, vulnerability, loneliness, love, and decided to use it. Then came the messages from our early days. Full of laughter, dreams, hope. She wrote things like, "You make me feel alive again. I've never met someone who listens like you do. Sometimes I forget how lucky I am to have you." Were those lies too? Or were they true once? Maybe that's what hurts the most. Not that she lied in the end, but that some of it was real in the beginning. And then came the darker ones. Messages from late nights when she thought I was asleep. Whispers into her phone while lying beside me. Things like, "I miss him so much. I wish I could be with him instead. I don't think he suspects anything." And finally, that last message she sent through him. "I'm sorry, I didn't want this." What did she mean? Did she mean she didn't want to hurt me? Or just that she didn't want to lose control of the story? Because here's the thing about apologies. They only matter if you admit fault. If you take responsibility. If you show that you understand what you did, and why it was wrong. But she never did. Even in her final words to me, she avoided it. She didn't say, "I betrayed you." She didn't say, "I lied." She didn't say, "I should have told you the truth." No, she said she didn't want it. Which is not the same as saying she didn't do it. And that's when I understood. This wasn't an apology. It was damage control. A final attempt to soften the blow. To keep people believing she was the victim. To make sure no one remembered her as the one who started the fire. But I remembered. And I made sure others would too. So I didn't reply to that message. Didn't give her the satisfaction of pretending we were having a conversation. Instead, I saved it. Added it to the drawer. Next to the receipts. Next to the photos. Next to the proof. And I closed it. Forever. Because sometimes, the worst kind of betrayal isn't the act itself. It's the refusal to admit it. It's the manipulation that continues even after the relationship ends. It's the belief that you can erase pain with a few well-chosen words. And that's when I realized. She never really lost. She tried to rewrite the ending. Tried to twist the truth. Tried to make the world believe she was just another broken heart. But I made sure they saw her for what she was. And in that sense, I won. Because I didn't let her control the story. I didn't let her walk away unchallenged. I didn't let her turn me into the villain. I simply showed everyone the truth. And sometimes, that's the most powerful revenge of all. I didn't reply to her message. Not then, not ever. Because what would I have said? Thank you for being sorry it ended this way? Do you really think words can fix what you did? No. Instead, I did something far more powerful. I showed the world how she ended it. Not with honesty, not with courage, but with carefully chosen words that sounded like an apology, while avoiding the truth entirely. I shared the message, just once, in a private conversation with someone who used to be one of her closest friends. She had been trying to reach out, begging for understanding, asking if they still believed in her. So I gave them proof. I sent the message, told them when it was sent, who delivered it, and why it wasn't really an apology at all. And then I waited for their response. It came hours later, just one sentence. I finally see it now. That's all, but it was enough, because it meant she couldn't keep rewriting the story anymore. People were seeing her for who she truly was. Not the woman who whispered sweet things into my ear late at night. Not the wife who smiled through family dinners and held my hand like nothing was wrong. Not the lover who built a life behind my back without ever looking back. No, they saw the woman who made choices, who lied, who betrayed someone who loved her more than she deserved, and who, even at the end, tried to twist the truth just enough to make herself look like the victim. And that's when I realized, some people don't learn from their mistakes. They just get better at hiding them. But I wasn't going to let her win. Not again. So I made one final decision. I deleted everything. Every message, every photo, every voice note, every record of our life together. All of it, except one thing, her last message, the one she sent through him. I'm sorry, I didn't want this. I kept that, not because I needed it anymore. Not because I wanted to hurt her. But because it was proof. Proof that even when she thought the game was over, I was still playing, and I had already won. I didn't burn her things. Didn't throw her clothes out in the middle of the night. Didn't delete her from every photo or erase all traces of our life together. Instead, I did something far more final. I moved, not across the street, not to another city, far away, where no one knew my name. Where no one had seen the screenshots. Where no one had heard the voice notes. A place where I could finally stop being the man who was betrayed. And just be me again. It took time, months, maybe even years. But slowly, I rebuilt. Not the same life, a new one. One without lies, without silence, without pretending. And somewhere along the way, I stopped checking my phone for messages from people who used to love me. Stopped wondering if she ever looked back and regretted what she did. Because it didn't matter. Even if she did, it wouldn't change anything. She made her choice, and I made mine. To survive, to remember, to never let someone else control my story again. And then, one day, I got a message. Not from her, not from him, from someone unexpected. Her sister. She wrote, "I just wanted to say thank you." I stared at the screen for a long time, then replied, "For what?" She answered quickly, "For showing us who she really was. We all loved her, but we deserved to know the truth." That was it. No apology, no explanation, just gratitude. And in that moment, I understood. I didn't need revenge anymore. Because justice had already been served. And the truth? It always finds its way. Even when people try to hide it. Even when they rewrite history. Lie to themselves. Pretend they were the victims. In the end, truth wins. And so do the people who choose not to let it bury them. So yes, I kept her last message. I'm sorry, I didn't want this. Not as a reminder of pain. Not as proof of betrayal. But as a symbol of how far I came. From believing every word she said, to understanding that sometimes the most dangerous words are the ones people say when they think no one is listening. And now, I am listening, I am seeing, I am living, without her, without the lies, without the game, And maybe, just maybe, that's the real victory. I never replied to her sister. Not because I didn't want to. Not because I held a grudge. But because some stories don't need endings. They just end. And that's okay. So instead of writing back, I did what I had done with everything else. I closed the message, saved it, put it away. Then I stood up, walked outside, sat on the small porch of my new apartment, where the air smelled like salt and pine, and the sky stretched endlessly above me. No ghosts here, no echoes of the past. Just silence, peaceful, real. I thought about her then. Not the woman who betrayed me, but the one who once sent me that first message. Hey, I saw your post about that old movie. You really like old classics? At the time, I thought it was fate. Now, I know it was a choice. She chose to reach out. She chose to build something with me. And later, she chose to walk away. Every step of the way, she chose. And so did I. I chose to believe her when she said she loved me. I chose to ignore the signs when things started to fall apart. I chose to stay long after I should have left. And finally, I chose to show the truth, even if it meant burning everything down. So yes, I kept her last message. But not because I wanted revenge. Because I needed to remember that love isn't always real just because it feels like it is. That betrayal doesn't always come with screaming or slamming doors. Sometimes, it comes with soft words, late-night messages, a smile that hides more than it shows. And sometimes, it ends with 4 simple words: I'm sorry. I didn't want this. But sorry isn't enough when you still won't say what you did wrong. Sorry isn't healing when it's wrapped in excuses. Sorry isn't forgiveness when it's just another game. So I let her have her words. And I took mine back. Piece by piece, message by message, until I was whole again. And now I live without looking over my shoulder. Without wondering what might have been. Without letting her shadow follow me through every new beginning. Because I learned something from all of this. You don't always win by getting the last word. Sometimes, you win by choosing not to play anymore. By walking away. By rebuilding. By refusing to let someone else define your story. And maybe that's the only real victory there is. So yes, this story began with one message. And now, it ends with one too. But this time, it's mine. One final message I never sent. Just 2 words. Clear, final, free. Goodbye, her.